everybody. Welcome to the Queerosphere podcast.
Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the 90s
and the Naughties.
And yeah, the Naughties, which I think are the early 2000s. Is that what you're saying?
Just 2001 through 2009.
Okay, good, because that is not something I'm familiar with. This is a new phrase that I just learned today, and it's sexy and I like it.
Oh, they started calling them the Naughties in the 2010s.
I've never heard of that before.
Really? Yeah, after they were over, they were like, it's the Naughties. Those are the Naughties. Because they're 00s.
I don't get it, but I like it. I like the 90s and 90s. I like the alliteration.
Yeah, because it's like, it's like 070. Yeah. That's the Naughties.
It's cute. But first. What was your back to school style when you were back in middle school?
I can't really pinpoint exactly back to school style, in the sense that I don't really remember fashion. I do remember one year I wore exclusively camouflage and or camo green. That was the 6th grade. My entire identity was built around camouflage.
Oh my gosh, why?
I don't know, because I was a tomboy.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it.
And it was like the most, like, camo and green were the most available boy colors for 12-year-old girls.
That's true. Was it the kind of camo that's like very artsy, or was it the kind of camo that was very hunty?
I don't know the difference. All
like
camo
it actually looks like leaves on a shirt, or does it look like a camo print?
Camo print, I guess.
Okay, I'm just curious because there's a different vibe for both of them. I think there's when you show up to school wearing like a hunter's orange with some camo, it looks different. But I'm thinking of you in that military green with the camo print. I think it's cute.
Yeah, I don't really remember. I never paid attention to fashion.
Okay.
When I was young, I didn't start doing it till I was an adult. So
right,
like literally everything I've ever worn is a blur to me. I don't have any particular outfits that like, oh God, I fucking remember that. Or I didn't care about my body. I didn't care about fashion.
Okay. I think that's fair. And knowing you, I think that's just like, yeah. My back to school style was definitely like whatever I was feeling in the moment. Like I'm definitely a moody person. I match the mood to the thing I'm either doing, thinking, or feeling. Whatever I'm going to like do actionably almost always has to do with my mood. This is what called like a mood disorder has to do with your brain. But I was feeling very anxious about going into middle school because I was coming from Loon Lake Elementary School going into Deer Park Middle School. And that transition is really hard for somebody who's not used to like the bigger settings with lots of people and whatever. I wore, with green hair, mind you. I had my mom dye my hair blue and yellow, turned green.
Of course. My hair's blue and yellow right now.
Okay, but listen. It turned green. Like the entire head was green. Yeah, but worse. I'm telling you, this was middle school. So bad. And I wore a Joker t-shirt from Hot Topic with some blue jeans.
Yeah.
With like not only just like the Joker t-shirt with like blue jeans, it was like that layered tank top look. I had like 2 tank tops underneath it that were like green and pink.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That was a big style back then.
That was me. I mean, I was really into trends, not like I was really into what was fashionable and popular, not necessarily like developing my own style, but just kind of like falling into that emo kid phase.
Yeah. I understand now, looking back, what was like trendy and popular. Living it, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Like I see trends now, and I'm like, oh, hopping on that bandwagon. As a kid, not part of my brain space. I just wanted to wear green because I wanted everyone to know that I didn't want to be a girl.
Yeah, I think that's the most non-binary action that you could have taken at that point.
That was my real non-binary year. The year that I wore all camo, that was the beginning of being an NB.
Yeah.
Don't perceive me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Don't fucking perceive me.
Don't fucking perceive me. Oh, yeah. I can get that. Like, now thinking back on it, I remember very distinctly, not remember, but I know very distinctly, like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it looked like in the early 2000s. But anyways, we were both 90s bitches. We were born there. It's where we came from. 94, 95.
95. I lived whole 5 years in the 90s. Yep.
Yep. I got a full 6 years. I was born at the beginning of the year also. So
I was born in the beginning of the year of 95 as well.
Well, I guess I was born in the spring of 95.
We're very close in age. Like, surprisingly close in age.
So 94 and 95. So we get to live through the early 2000s coming off of the 90s.
Right.
As opposed to like my sister Brianna, who's truly a naughty. She was born in 99.
Right.
So she's truly like a naughties kid.
Yeah.
She everything in the naughties was made for her.
Yeah.
Was made for her. But we got to see the transition from we didn't really get to see it. I wouldn't say that I got to see what things were like in the 90s necessarily. I was 6 years old when they ended.
Right.
However, the news traveled slower in small towns back then. We didn't have the internet.
Not only did we not have the internet, we also were in a small town, so it's even slower than you think.
Yeah. What do you remember anything specifically from the 90s?
So I'm gonna go off. Here's what I remember in retrospect, and the reason I'm saying that is for the same reason that you're saying this. We came off the 90s, we weren't actually there, but did I experience it? Do I remember certain visualizations of the 90s? Yes, I do. I mean, I was really fucking there, had eyes. And trends. I can remember rollerblades and skateboards. I mean, skateboards were such a sexy thing to me when I was like 6. I don't know why. I think it's because all the boys were doing it, and that's what I wanted to do too.
Roller skating's more of like an 80s thing to me. Like the 70s and the 80s were huge for roller skating.
Right.
Because disco.
I think I'm painting a picture here, which is like it's essentially more of a skateboard, like a very not 80s one, but the very 90s one.
Like very rocket power.
Yes. No, exactly. Okay. So skateboards, mood rings, the Rachel. We all know the Rachel.
Oh,
Everyone
I had
was
the Rachel like 2 years ago.
I mean, she's iconic. She's iconic. Power Rangers, Nickelodeon quintessential cartoons, like the Angry Beavers. Better DComs, Disney Channel original movies, way better DComs. Chunky highlights, frosted tips. But then like those things kind of translate, right? You were saying like into the thousands where we have this progression that's happening where we take this like edginess and then it kind of comes into this like weird, it's almost like this is what I wrote, rave/emo kids into fan gaze and Tumblr gaze into full-blown queers. That's like the 20-year history that you have here. It starts off with this like weird like pop culture phenomenon. I'm gonna take what I see from the TV into this era of internet where you're getting a multiplicity of like trends that are just constantly evolving. And I think the point here that I'm trying to make is that it was so constantly evolving, but like in retrospect, all I can see are those things, that Power Rangers, like that turning on the TV at 7 a.m. and seeing this cartoon that just doesn't exist anymore, that won't exist. And that was probably like better than what I like now.
I don't know. If it's from the 90s, it's probably back now.
Really? Because you know what it is? I just think I'm nostalgic. Like in this, I'm just nostalgic. I'm feeling that era of the past.
I love nostalgia. I have a lot of nostalgia from the 90s, but that's mostly because I prefer 90s aesthetic over 2000s aesthetic every day. I think that the 2000s are so fucking ugly, and I'm glad that they're gone.
I agree. Shaking my head, yes.
It's like, it's nice to look back on, and whenever I look back at the 2000s, I think that that's just the ugliest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. Just low-cut jeans.
Yeah.
Low-cut jeans, fucking hats, belts all over, literally everything.
Graphic t-shirts, like graphic, like those like characters. You remember that shit? It'll have like a weird looking bunny, and then it'll say like, you know what I'm talking?
Yeah, the happy bunny.
Yes, that shit too.
Yeah, I used to have a lot of those shirts actually.
Yeah. Ugly.
Fucking ugly. And like another thing that was like huge that time that I like really specifically remember was there was a lot of commercials, like infomercials on the television specifically targeted towards people my age.
Yeah.
That were like huge collections of things that you would subscribe to. Like, do you remember the like you draw, it's got like a flat that looks like, it's got like a flat little drawer thing, and it's rainbow on it.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like you draw on it, not the ones that you scrape off, the one that you can just like draw on it and then erase it.
Yeah.
Those huge things. There were those huge fucking things of like Like I was part of a Hello Kitty fan club that my mom signed me up for, and it sent me crafts every month to do with books. It was crazy. I never even liked Hello Kitty. I was so confused about that.
That's so funny. I mean, I remember in the early 2000s, I was a part of one of those clubs too. It was the Oceanography Scholastic Club.
Oh, you're gonna love this. Do you know what? You know what else I used to get when I was a child?
What?
I used to get Scooby-Doo comic books delivered to my house.
That's incredible.
That's what my mom decided for me.
Oh my gosh. We have some Scooby-Doo memorabilia that would just be cool to see now. Just bring out and...
I mean, I don't have any of them.
Yeah, well, R.I.P.
You know what also we had? Themed things were such a huge thing. I think that themed things started in, honestly, the 2000s. I cannot think to myself of, like, seeing collectors things of, like, children's cartoons until I was into, like, we used to have a Scooby-Doo chess set.
That's amazing.
Now you can get Monopoly in literally any flavor that you want.
Right.
And there's chess sets for everything now. But I'm pretty sure that started pretty in the early 2000s.
Yeah. Abundance wasn't a thing yet. Like, it was definitely, like, a thing that we were just, like, throwing commercialization at children, really.
Yeah.
So.
The period between the 90s and the 2000s starts us going... there's a reason that the 2000s starts repeating trends.
Right.
And that's that we started having the internet. And so people were having access to things that previously that we didn't get in our small town.
Right.
We started understanding those references. We started being able to understand those references and try to keep up with things.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that starting in like 2010, trends started repeating themselves because those people who really didn't have access to the full scope of them finally did. There's like a divide between the 90s and the 2000s that comes up between any other decade because technology started developing so quickly.
Right.
That we are right in the center of knowing both ways.
Yes.
Having lived an entire analog life and then lived an entirely digital life.
Right, because I think, like, the one thing that my childhood gave me that I'm seeing not a lot of children get these days is time away from the screens. And, like, I hate being that old person that says that, and I'm not even old, but it's true that that analog life you're talking about, like, there is something, and nothing is inherently good or bad, it's what we make it, but, like, I remember, like, part of my childhood, like, you know, getting those things from TV and then having to spend the time with them. Like, I didn't get to, until, like, maybe 2006, 7, spend the majority of my time in front of a fucking TV. Like, before that, it was, like, doing the country thing, riding four-wheelers, playing outside, building snow forts, what have you.
You know what? We had the best of both worlds.
Chill it, I'll take it slow. Nintendo.
Oh,
the progression of Nintendo. Let's talk about that for a second.
You want to talk about the progression of Nintendo? Because I know quite a lot about the progression of Nintendo.
Tell me how it relates.
How it relates?
And how gay.
And how gay? I mean, personally, I think that video games as a whole have been very important to kids in the sense that it's a way to participate with storytelling if you're not a strong reader.
Hallelujah.
Or if you're not somebody who can pay attention to a movie like myself.
Praise.
We finally get to interact with storytelling in a way that's engaging.
Yeah.
For people.
It's incredible.
And because we go from Nintendo, for example, we go from side-scrolling 2D flat animation with very little dialogue, very little story. It's basically mostly about making challenges. To when Nintendo released The Legend of Zelda, which was the first full 3D open world game in existence ever, it has an entire narrative and a story with characters and conclusions and outcomes that you can an entire world that you can interact with. And I think that video games are a very natural progression of storytelling in the sense that you get to be a part of the story. You're now controlling it.
Yeah.
You get to play with it. It's engaging. and that was really great. But then we also saw very easily the turn from holy shit, this is so amazing
Mm-hmm.
to the media shitstorm.
Yeah. And when did that occur for you?
I don't know. I think that I became aware probably before high school.
Yeah, me
That
too.
it was a talking point that video games cause violence.
Yep. I remember like persuasive essays were being pushed at us to write about not only like Catholic schoolgirl uniforms and whether it's good for girls, but also like things like video games are bad for boys and violence. Like they would push you to persuade in those ways, and like didn't make sense to me.
But can I just take a moment to appreciate to not talk seriously about the implications of it, but just to take you through some of the video games that I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
As a small child. Some of the things that really the first gaming system I can remember having is the Nintendo 64.
Okay.
We also had a Sega, but we had that probably my dad I think had that before I was conscious enough to
Play it.
Yeah. And then we had a Nintendo 64.
Okay.
I do not remember buying the Nintendo 64. I just know that we had one.
We had one too.
And woo-wee, we had a lot of games for them that were incredible, quintessential 90s things that you don't see anymore, really.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's this guy named Ed, and like he fights vegetables, and he's like only partially a person.
Okay.
He's a janitor in space, I guess.
Oh.
And the first thing that you do, they just tell you the world is ending, and then they send you down, and then you have to sled down a mountain on a trash can top.
Nice.
And just incredible. I remember playing Castlevania 64, which was very scary as a child.
Dude, I remember those games. I remember them on the PC, I feel like, not on the Nintendo.
There's lots of Castlevania games.
Okay.
This one in particular was for the Nintendo 64, and
cool.
it's the only one I've ever played, and I've still never played it all the way through.
We should just do that one day.
Well, I couldn't do it because it required a memory card at the time. If you didn't have a memory card, you had to play it all the way through in one sitting. And also, if you played on easy mode, it would only let you halfway through the game. You had to play on hard mode.
Oh, wow.
So I never managed to get all the way through because we didn't have a memory card. Struggles. Those are the struggles.
Yeah.
Appreciate your fucking Wii's, kid.
Yeah.
Or no, not Wii's.
That was earlier.
Hold on. Whoops. Appreciate your fucking Switches, kids.
I was going to say Switches.
And appreciate autosave because
Yeah.
that shit's a bastard. These are the struggles that we deal with.
Really?
That we dealt with. Also, I'm gonna put out there because I really want a remake of this game, so I'm gonna say it. Donkey Kong 64.
Oh my god, no way.
Is the most incredible game. It did Super Mario so much better than Super Mario. People can fight me about it.
I can't
Donkey
wait.
Kong 64.
I can't wait.
Donkey Kong 64 was the standard.
Can I name one?
Yes, go for it.
Frogger. Frogger. Come on, Frogger. Like
Computer
it was like such a kid game. Like you were like, oh,
You know
I have to
what
get
else
this
was
frog
released
across
in the
street.
2000s?
Huh?
The early 2000s? The Sims?
Yes, and that is a empire these days.
The Sims. What a fun game to play. What kind of toys do you remember having?
So mostly stuffed animals because that was my family's thing was like collecting stuffed animals. We had really.
Did you ever have a Skip It?
A Skip It? No, we had a Bop It, and we had one of those like ankle things. Is that a Skip It?
That's a Skip It.
Where you put it on your ankle and then you jump. Yep,
that's
we
a
had one of
Skip It.
those. God, I fucking loved the Skip It. We had one of those. We had scooters. Scooters were really like those metal scooters that fucking hit you on the ankle when
For
you're
my 13th
riding.
birthday, guess what I got?
What?
A moped.
What?
I got a moped for my
Nice.
13th. No, actually for my 10th birthday. I lied to you.
Nice.
For my 10th birthday, we got like me and my sister Katrina got electric mopeds that we were allowed to just drive around town. I don't know what the fuck.
That's okay. I mean, my dad gifted us 4-wheelers when I was like 12, and my sister was like,
Oh yeah,
10.
we had 4-wheelers for like country driving out when we were in the country, but these were for when we lived in the city. They were literally it was ridiculous.
that's pretty cool. If we want to switch, I also really like to visit music in that era. I think you were talking to me the other day about country pop, and that was fantastic.
Oh, pop country?
Yes, pop country. Come on.
Pop country.
Yeah, we got the Faith Hill, Shania Twain shits.
Hell yeah. Martina McBride, the Chicks.
Yeah.
Gretchen Wilson, fuck.
Yeah. So many
Faith Hill.
powerhouse people.
So many. And country really went from being, I think, powerhouse in the 90s to being absolutely, completely unlistenable
Yes.
in the 2000s, and 9/11 is the reason.
Yes.
I'm not going to apologize for
Do
saying
not
that.
No. This is a sorry, not sorry moment.
Sorry, not sorry. The reason was 9/11 because the culture of country music in the United States, obviously it shifted a lot during 9/11.
Right.
Like, values were challenged, values were
revealed,
yeah,
let's say.
And so there's really a huge shift during that time away from like fun country music to America, America, America.
Yeah, for sure. Like celebrating a nation. It's just crazy that country music took on that role.
Of course, country music took on that role.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. I guess it's just annoying because it's like, how can music be influenced to like something like that? But that's music.
Yeah,
that's music. So specifically because
fuck, you know what happened in the early 2000s?
What?
That was absolutely batshit crazy. That changed the shape and scape of music forever.
What?
Rihanna.
Yes.
But also American Idol.
Yes.
Kelly Clarkson.
Yes.
Carrie Underwood.
Go off.
Huge.
Yeah.
Jordan Sparks. Did you have the Jordan Sparks album? I had the
No,
Jordan
I was more of a
Sparks
Kelly
album.
Clarkson, Carrie Underwood bitch myself. I also was not someone who liked American Idol because I thought the show was stupid. Like I couldn't actually sit there and watch it with my family. I would tell them I'm going to my room because the show drives me insane. Like I would watch the finale with them and that would be it.
Oh, see, we only ever watched the audition stuff. We didn't care about anything after that. We just wanted to see random people auditioning. After the auditions were over, I think one of my sisters maybe watched it, but we were done until we found out who won.
Yeah.
I've never watched a finale.
Yeah.
In fact, I've never even watched an actual season. I've literally only seen auditions.
You're right that it changes the landscape of music, though, because it did give what the illusion is that it gives normal people the ability to get famous, and
that was huge in the 2000s.
It was, and
America's Next
reality TV became something akin to that, where it's like we're not focused on celebrity lifestyle, but we're focused on normal people and what they're doing, and sometimes like Big Brother would isolate people and be like, you have to live in this house and we're just gonna watch you and see what you do. And Jersey Shore is another one like that, where they just throw people in a house and make them work and then watch them, like crazy.
Well, because I can't remember the timeline of reality TV, but let me know if you think that this is accurate.
Okay.
It was like very celebrity based in the 90s, and then it shifted to normal people in the 2000s.
Yeah. Because it wasn't in the 90s that these reality shows existed. It was like literally 2001. You know what I mean?
There were lots of reality shows from
No,
the
I
90s.
just mean like America's Next Top Model, like these ones.
Yeah, I think that there was a huge shift towards getting tired of celebrity. I wonder what that was about.
My thing is that I think what it is that a lot of people were watching drama and soaps in the 90s. These like really heavy-handed, like novella type, like emotional things. And then
like
we just,
what?
Days of Our Lives, like those ones that lasted years, like
is
50
Days
years.
of Our Lives really emotional? I've never seen it, so I'm just wondering.
I'm going to say that for someone like my mother, it was something that she did every single day. And it was something she invested her time in watching TV in the 90s. Yes. Like, she didn't start watching TV that was popularized until probably we became old enough to pick our own TV. And she'd be like, oh, there's something new on that's not this stupid soap. And, like, people would watch the news, too. Like, it was just very, like, old. It was almost like that. And because we lived in a small town, there's this, too, which is that, like, popularization doesn't come until later. And so for people like my mom who like don't pay attention to jack shit, it's like, yeah, I didn't, get past the 80s. Like I'm still stuck in this era of like bad antiquated shit, and then something I guess better comes along, and it just takes a while for somebody to get on that bandwagon. But whatever about that. I think that you're right. I think that you're not off base in saying that like celebrities got washed to the wayside a little bit.
Yeah, that's why MTV went down, I think, because it was more focused on less on celebrities and more on just regular people.
And dare I say that it actually gets more so towards regular people when we have the development of social media, like
Oh, yeah.
MySpace and
Well,
Facebook and shit like that.
Here's the thing, is that I think that social media is maybe even the opposite of that, because it's the transition from regular people's transition from regular people to celebrity.
Really?
Yeah, that's what social media has done. I mean, we have influencers now, which are just regular people who work their way to fame via social media.
Interesting. I don't know. It seems like a dichotomy to me that I'm not quite fleshed out here in my mind, but it's interesting nonetheless. The last trend I have, if you want to talk about it, I don't know what you're going to say about this. Shrek? How do you feel about Shrek, the movie?
Oh, for one, I wouldn't use the word movie. Film. Shrek is a...
I'm biting my tongue. I mean, I'm biting my lip.
Shrek is a well-established, a very well put together film production.
It's
really incredible.
Film. So Shrek came out in 2001.
Yeah.
And I remember because I was in first grade, and I remember everything about first grade. I really do. It was like one of the years that I was like really into shit, and I would like quote Shrek around the classroom. Like I'd be like, donkey, just like saying the weirdest shit when I was a kid. And
I mean,
God, Shrek. I mean, you're right. It is a fucking film.
Shrek was a very incredible film.
May she live forever.
Yeah, I love Shrek. And Shrek 2. Shrek 2 holds up. Shrek 3, fuck off.
Yeah.
The Jonas Brothers.
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I'm a stan. I'm a huge stan.
The Jonas Brothers. Do you remember Big Time Rush?
Fuck yeah, I remember Big Time Rush. Logan was a fave.
Yeah, television show pop stars. Hannah Montana, Big Time Rush, the Jonas Brothers.
And their secret lives.
Yeah. So literally just like the idea of television shows. So they're pop stars, but they're getting their own shows to be actors. Allie and AJ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was another one. I think Allie and AJ actually happened after 2010. But still. There was like, and they were, I don't know about Big Time Rush necessarily. I think that they were big, but not, I mean, obviously they were Nickelodeon instead of Disney, so not as big as the Jonas Brothers or like Hannah Montana.
Right.
But like that was a huge thing at that time. They were constantly, every time somebody started a show on the Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, they always had the plan to make a pop star out of it.
I mean, I think
that's what they tried to do with Victorious.
Yes, Victorious. I was gonna say they still do that. They still to this day try to make they like JoJo Siwa. She was Nickelodeon, came from Dance Moms, but they still did the same thing where they like what they do is they gather groups of children and interview them and try to make a star out of them as they're young. They literally, I mean, Demi Lovato like talks about this actively with Allison Stoner and people who are like, Disney fucking sucks.
Crazy.
They purposefully will take children and then groom them into Disney pop stars. That's how that fucking works.
Also,
and Nickelodeon just dumps slime on them. That's the difference.
Yeah. I experienced a personal betrayal starting in the early 2000s in regards to television, because for some fucking reason, Cartoon Network decided to start making live action animation around that time.
Okay.
In fact, I want to talk about the fall of Cartoon Network for a moment.
Oh my god.
Because
here we go.
How far she's fallen.
How far she's fallen. Really?
Really.
Okay.
Do you know what they play? You know what 90% of the playbacks on?
Tell me.
Teen Titans Go.
Really?
Yeah. They'll play hours and hours of Teen Titans Go, and then they'll maybe throw in
like
Adventure Time or like a Ben 10 situation.
So why is this a betrayal?
Why was that? Well, Cartoon Network started abandoning cartoons to try and dive into live action.
I'm connecting the dots. Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network.
Sometimes I don't see the dots as they're literally laid right in front of me.
Like Cartoon Network used to value cartoons. And that's something that went away in the early 2000s. In fact, I can't think of a single cartoon that I really love from that era.
I can think of a few I hate, but kind of like love-hate.
Like who?
So I'm thinking I don't remember what it's called, Flapjack?
Oh, I love Flapjack.
So it's not that
The
I hate
Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack.
Thank you. And Chowder.
And Chowder.
These two were, I think, in that category of like they were new but not watched as much as these other shows that were appearing on the network.
Chowder and Flapjack are very they're quintessential to how modern cartoons came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they started happening around the time that like Cartoon Network started wanting to disengage from cartoons for some reason, which really made me upset. And I mean, Cartoon Network had some spanking cartoons going on.
They really did.
A very long time. I mean, the Powerpuff Girls.
Yep.
Dexter's Laboratory.
God, Dexter's Laboratory.
Samurai Jack.
Oh my god, I loved that one. I fucking love
Everybody loves
Samurai Jack. Yeah, if you can get that out of your mind, like get that out of the depths of your mind, bring it back. Bring that shit back.
They already brought Samurai Jack back. Samurai Jack had a season that aired last year.
Clearly I'm stuck in the past somewhere.
Samurai Jack was back. The Powerpuff Girls are back. Teen Titans are back.
I did know Powerpuff Girls was back.
They had the Teen Titans, which was incredible. Avatar: The Last Airbender happened in the 2000s.
It did.
Which was life-changing.
It was life-changing.
Avatar: The Last Airbender changed animation forever. Changed American animation forever.
It's a relic. Like, it will be.
It's a treasure.
Exactly.
An artifact. It's incredible.
It is. I respect that show so much I can't even laugh.
Yeah. I mean, nobody steps to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Who would do that? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because it's really fucking good.
Yeah.
And another thing in the 90s 2000s that I have to bring up. It's a trend. Light up sneakers.
Yeah,
and like the wheelies.
The wheelies, I was gonna say, and those rolly ones. God, my mom, she would always tell me, and I'm going back to the skateboards on this one too. I mean, like, I was such a tomboy, you know. I was the non-binary kid that they never wanted, and I would tell them like skateboards, wheelies. I want to do like adrenaline junkie type shit like a boy does, and they're like, no, honey, you need to, you know, like watch for your nails and, you know, make sure that your makeup's clean before you go outside. It was just this stupid shit, and it's just so annoying because wheelies were one thing that I couldn't get. Skateboard was one thing I couldn't get because of the stupid gender differences. But iconic nonetheless. Like, I would, you know, to borrow friends' shoes and fall.
Do you remember anything gay from the 90s or the 2000s?
So no, and there's reasons.
There was of course there's reasons. Ross's first wife and her lesbian partner.
Yeah, that didn't slide over well, I don't think, in time. But neither did Ross himself.
No, everybody hates Ross.
Fuck Ross.
Queer as Folk happened.
That's
in
true.
The early 2000s.
Early 2000s, 2005 is when the L Word began. I mean, actually, Eileen Chaikin, I believe, started developing it in the early 2000s with people who were. She literally modeled it after her own life in LA, kind of thing.
But yeah, Will and Grace.
Will and Grace was one.
Will and Grace was another big one. There were a lot of queer coded things.
I was gonna say there's subtextual things, I think. Like
subtext.
Hey, last episode. But yeah, no, I think that's where it comes from, is that subtext. I think that we get a lot of hidden shit.
But I mean, Ricky Martin coming out as being exposed, I should say.
Oh fuck, I don't even want to say this one, but Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres coming out.
She was a highly regarded figure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that historically, Ellen DeGeneres will go down as a highly regarded figure.
Yeah, I mean, she was friends with Barack Obama, for Christ's sake. Like, she was like, the progression of her career is just insane.
Yeah, I mean, she's friends with George W. Bush.
This is why she's a controversial figure, though.
Yeah. Oh God. You know who was all over everything?
What?
Perez Hilton.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that freaking name in the studio. I swear to God, Perez Hilton, I used to like almost idolize that person. Okay, just so you know, like when I was a kid, I was not a good person. I grew up when I was 18. I didn't have proper values back then. Right. But Perez Hilton was like the cockroach of gossip. And I loved that shit because so was I.
Yeah. I love I love gossip. I love to hear the tea. I love to spill the tea. I draw the line at it being harmful.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
I understand as a child you wouldn't have known to do.
Oh, and I'm not going to sit here and beat myself up about it.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
I do remember. I mean,
I'm not
remember.
going to sit here and beat you up about it.
Yeah, well, I remember literally turning on the TV to like VH1 or MTV and seeing Press Hilton and being like, I'm staying here.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see what fucking shit came out of his mouth. And like, I think I remember not liking him the minute I saw him interview Pink, who was also my favorite early 2000s pop star. She was a huge role model for me. And then I think I saw the tension between them and was like, oh, bye.
And you're speaking on Eminem earlier.
Right.
Huge homophobia controversy.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason I was bringing them up earlier was just because they were big for boys. Like they were big. I mean, from where I was growing up, especially coming from Loon Lake Elementary School, like the type of music that certain people listen to would almost stereotype them into a role in the school. And I feel like the boys that were listening to people like Kanye and Eminem and people like that were impressing upon their ideas of women and gay people onto the next person. So like I remember one specific kid who listened to Eminem and would like impress upon people with his like, you know, values of what it meant to be a man or whatever, and harmed a ton of kids at our school. Like a ton of kids. And like, okay, I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't enjoy a song or two. I'm not going to sit here and say, but I just like, I think that era is not something all the time to be like, ooh, yeah, I remember this. Like, I'm not going to sit there and be like, I'm going to listen to Better, Faster, Stronger and also every Kanye like throwback and enjoy it now. I can't. Like, I literally can't.
Oh, I mean, I can enjoy a good throwback. Because I believe in guilty pleasures, and I think that you can like and enjoy and participate in something and also criticize it.
I guess I just choose what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, music is one thing for me that it's just so funky and weird. Like, if I'm not paying for it, then I'll go back and listen to the fucking song.
Yeah. I think
I'll find it on YouTube.
I think for the relationship that people have with Eminem and Kanye, it's just very tumultuous and diverse.
Yeah. Well, I think Eminem is pretty much settled. Like,
I mean, I think he's apologized for a lot of shit.
I did want to talk to you about TV shows that started in the 2000s that are still going and how you can visibly see the change in them.
Oh my God. All right. What's one?
Law and Order, SVU.
No, I didn't think you were going to go there. That's hysterical.
We used to watch, it was a huge thing. We used to watch USA all the time.
Yeah.
On the USA channel. So, it's like Law and Order, SVU was one of the main things on our.
Yeah.
And just I recently have started seeing like newer episodes because it's still going on.
Right.
It's crazy how much it has changed.
What do you mean by changed though? Like, what about it?
Just the
I can imagine in every aspect because like things change, but do you mean like the storytelling?
Yeah, the storytelling. Okay. I mean, it used to be so crass and so dark and so like disrespectful to victims.
It used to be definitely like a cop
show.
Yeah. A cop show.
A cop show.
I say that in the Boston accent because of Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
Like all that shit that.
Yeah. Or like Grey's Anatomy has been going on that entire time.
Yeah. One of my favorites is Supernatural. I mean, it's no longer going now, but
yeah, it was going that entire time
for 15 fucking years.
Yeah, it was happening that entire time.
15 out of 27 of my goddamn years of life.
Yeah.
That gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. I mean, I read One Piece, so.
Yeah, well, yeah.
One Piece started like 2 years after I was born.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot. That's a lot of content to absorb. All of this really is. I mean, as we've lived the years we have absorbed so much. And I think it was going back to what you were saying that
the transition, the technology, the technology transition.
Not only the transition, but the progression. I think it looks like a progression almost.
Yeah. The transition from having absolutely no internet to having the entire world in the palm of my hand.
Yeah, and then we didn't even talk about like memes, YouTubes, the YouTubes.
Oh God, YouTube started in 2008.
Some 7 or 8, yeah. But and then the influencing part started in 2009 when people started picking it up, and then
there was YouTubers came before influencers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
influencers was a mobile device.
Yes.
Phenomenon. YouTubers were completely. Oh my God, the rise of YouTubers. That's a 2010s thing.
That's a different episode, but yeah, I think that it progressed to that, right?
It started there.
The one thing I did want to talk about, and just very briefly at the end of this episode, because we do focus on advocacy somewhat in this queerosphere space, and that's the period of the early 2000s LGBTQ rights and how it expanded from something that was like really not talked about or kind of it was controversial into something that was more like of an awareness. Nothing really got solved until like at least in the United States until a little bit later.
Yeah. But I mean, in Washington State, 2012, the 2012 election is when gay marriage became legal in Washington State. And I know that very specifically because that was the first time I was ever allowed to vote. I graduated high school in 2012.
Incredible. So you got to be a part of that.
Yeah. I turned 18 that year.
That's exciting. I have this quote that I pulled from the internet, and it is just a general Googleable quote. Like, it's not even, like, I'm not even going to cite it, but it just says, and I can cite it, the Netherlands was the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage in 2001. By the end of 2009, same-sex marriage was legal and performed in 10 countries worldwide, although only in some jurisdictions in Mexico and the United States. So it became the level of awareness. It really wasn't, like, the balls were rolling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't...
and we also called it same-sex marriage, when we could have called it queerdom, like the queerhood,
Well, we know all of our terms are defined by... They have to be palatable to not us.
Yeah.
They have to be palatable to those guys in charge.
Mick.
But I don't know. I think that we did start seeing... I mean, we gave some examples earlier, but I think we really started getting representation in media for queer people openly in the 2000s. Was it good representation? Probably not.
I'm just gonna say no. But for the time, like.
But people were, you could see gay people doing things. You could see celebrities who were gay, who were just out and about. It was.
I just feel like it wasn't normalized into a culture of conversation yet. It was controversial still.
I don't know. I never got the feeling that it was controversial.
Oh, I did. Everywhere I went. I mean, my papa was gay. I was raised in a hair salon, very public space, and I saw plenty that said to me, gay people aren't allowed here. You aren't allowed to exist. You aren't allowed to have rights, and we don't want to talk about this unless we're going to condemn it.
When was Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
93 was when it was issued.
See, that's what I mean in the sense that it's like, they're not saying don't be gay. They're just saying I don't want to know about it.
Right.
You know, whereas it was vehemently don't be gay.
Yeah.
Before that. And it sort of became the stance of America as a whole was be gay. I just don't want to hear about it.
I mean, but that just says to me, don't be gay. Like, it just really just... and I guess the only reason I say this is because when I see my papa and my Tony, the way that they had to hide from my family wasn't okay. And I mean, that's just one example of a million. But it just, to me, like, it's so harmful. And... I mean, duh. We had to repeal that recently, didn't we? Like, wasn't it something recent? The Don't Ask, Don't Tell, didn't we do that recently, repeal it?
No, it was done in the Obama administration.
Okay. Okay.
So, like, that was like, Obama was elected in 2009. That was 14 years ago.
Well, right. So that's, so like 14 years ago, Obama changed, like Obama, the era changed.
Oh, yeah. Obama was elected. We had our first black president in 2009.
Yeah.
In the Naughties. Could you imagine going back to your middle school self? Just like imagine switching places, like your mind in
Right.
the body of your middle school self.
I'm wearing that Joker t-shirt.
Are you telling people about the future or are you not?
Yes.
I'm 100% in. They'll be like, you're not supposed to do that. It's the butterfly effect. You could change the whole future. I'll be like, bitch, I hope the fuck I do.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm thinking here too is just that, like, if I'm gonna go back to my middle school Joker hair t-shirt wearing
Oh, but
bitch
we're not going
self.
back. You are transported into their body. So you
Oh.
look like your middle school self. You talk like your middle school self. You are your middle school self, except inside your brain, you're not.
Oh shit. Would I
So we're
tell
not
people the
going-
future? Is that what your question
Yeah.
is?
Would you tell everybody?
Yes.
Would you be like, I'm actually, I'd be
I mean,
like,
I mean, at the risk of being thrown in jail or worse, but I've been to worse. So,
That's true. I mean,
yeah.
if I could just be thrusted back in time with my actual self, I would want to have my cell phone in hand so I could be like, here, take this, or like have my ID on me.
Like
I'd be
Phil of the future.
Yeah, I'd be like, here's this. They'd be like, what? And I'd be like, it's okay, you got a fake driver's license. I said, yeah, but look at the year that it was issued.
Yeah.
That's a real driver's license. It was issued in 2017.
And you'll be like, can you scan it? And they'll be like, we don't know how to do that. I'm just kidding. But what's your thought process around this? What were we talking about?
I'm just wondering if you take the risk and you tell everybody.
Oh, fuck yeah. And here's another reason why, besides even you just ignore the butterfly effect. I think the other reason I tell people about the future is because I think people already do it. Like, I think people already in some way are intuitive to some things and can just say very generally, like, what comes next. I just don't think that's as scary as people think it is.
I think that having a prediction of the future and having the ability to change the future are two completely different things.
Yeah, I mean, if I had the ability to change the future, that would be like very empowering.
Yeah, I would definitely change everybody, and I don't care if I wake up in the apocalypse. The apocalypse is probably better than what we've got going on right now.
Yeah, we live in a dystopia right now.
Yeah, at least if it's an apocalypse, then maybe I have the opportunity to fix things because the government isn't there anymore.
Theoretically, apocalypse period doesn't stay apocalypse period. Apocalypse period becomes normalized and becomes a new beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want the government to be around. But yeah, if I were to go back in time, I would definitely if I were thrust back in time, like I didn't choose to go back in time. I was just sort of woke up there one day. I'd spill the beans. I'd tell everyone everything. And they'd be like, no, you're not supposed to do that. And I'd be like, I hope that I'd be like, you don't understand. I came from the bad timeline.
You don't understand.
I'd be like, I'm a queer person who lived through Trump's America. It doesn't get worse than that. I can't imagine it being worse than this. It's a pandemic. We had a bad president who did a pandemic on us.
Yeah.
Who didn't respond to it. Thrust upon us a pandemic.
Yes. Go off. Tell me what else. This dystopian
and now,
hellscape.
For some reason, well, not for some reason, and now, because of that president and his stupid pandemic policies, Nazis are just allowed to do whatever they want again.
Yeah, that's the kicker here, folks.
Guess what? I've been to the future. I'd be like, I'm not going back to the future. There are Nazis there. They'd be like, we have to find a way to get you back there. And I'd be like, no, I'm not going back.
It makes me think that in lieu of this entire conversation that we're having about the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then, like, I mean, we hadn't talked about that, but coming up to this point in history where we've gone through the pandemic, a bad president, and all this shit, it feels...
Couple bad presidents. I lived through Bush, too.
Yes. It feels very regressive right now as a queer person, as a AFAB person, as
Roe v. Wade was just overturned.
That's the sickening part of it, is that you're just seeing the evidence of the regression.
Imagine telling your history teachers that. Like, you're sequestered in...
I wish I could. I wish I could go back in time and tell the first history teacher that I ever respected at Eastern Washington University what the fuck just happened. And I wish I could say, hey, what do you think? Because you know some shit. Like, what say you, good sir?
I can't imagine telling everybody, going back to the 90s or 2000s and explaining to everyone everything that I've just experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd look like aliens. And it does remind me of the show Third Rock from the Sun. Did you ever watch that show with Joseph Gordon-Levitt? It is a 90s show. And it essentially is that they are aliens that came down to Earth and live as humans. And that's what it feels like a little bit in that regressive period of like, you know what? We have this car. I'm gonna out somebody here. We have this car in our apartment complex parking lot that's a red Jeep Cherokee, and it has the most Trump supportive, shittiest stickers all over it. It's the most disgusting thing. You've seen it. Yeah. There's one that says like racist, and then it says like, oh, like a racist is just somebody who doesn't conform to the ideas of a leftist or a liberal. Ooh, so good.
That's not what a racist is.
No, it's not what a racist is at all. And that's what I'm saying about that. Like, we are living in two different timelines right now, folks. We are currently in the split of time. We are in a multiverse of madness.
Yeah. The Bearstein Bears, spelled both ways.
It is.
Yeah. Just depends on whether or not you're in Washington or Montana. No, it's truly crazy how, I don't know. Somehow the 90s and the 2000s feel more unified than right now.
They do.
We know that it's because of the pandemic. We know that it's because of the Trump presidency.
Mm-hmm.
The Trump presidency split this country in half in a way it hasn't been split in half since the actual Civil War.
On purpose. Like, it wasn't a mistake that this had happened. It was evil people literally in our government who purposefully did this thing.
They wanted a civil war.
They did.
They were trying to get a civil war, and they were very close.
I think they're even closer than they might seem, because fighting happens still every day.
Yeah.
Fighting for our lives in a variety of different ways, whether it be poverty or like actual fighting that's going on in the eastern part of the world. Like, that still exists. And Trump had a hand in every single thing that's happening. So fuck him.
Fuck him.
Fuck that dude. Fuck that dude.
Fuck Trump. I think all in all, like, I don't know. I like to feel nostalgic about those days, but then when we actually talk about it like this, we're like, what a garbage dump.
What a garbage dump. What a trash fire. Yeah. I think that's why it leads me to say, like, okay, like, if this, then the future needs to be different.
Yeah. Where I love the fashion, and I'm going to steal it. And, like, I love to go back to those old memes, the campiness. I miss camp. The way that they used to do camp.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
They don't do camp like that anymore on television, and I really miss that. But I would say that if this conversation has made me realize anything, it's that we have got to see in our lifetimes, and we get to retroactively see right now, how important representation is and how we take it for granted. Like, I'm literally, that Australian TV show I was telling you about that looked like 2005, I don't think I've seen a single, like, not queer character a little bit. Like, cool. Representation is just a part of our lives now. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I love to be able to see myself and people like me on TV.
I agree. It's very liberating.
It's very validating.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And that's what I was thinking about during this entire time. I was like, God, we had such shit representation in the 90s. I don't want to look up to Perez Hilton.
No, we don't. And it, like, the cool thing about it too, I think, is that it did sort of breed some sort of individuality in us. Like, I feel very individualized in the way that there wasn't representation. But again, that validation is that duality that you need. Thank you guys for listening to our ranting and raving on Naughties from the 90s. That's who we are. We're Naughties from the 90s. The 90s and the Naughties.
Yeah, we're showing you Naughties from the 90s.
Thank you for coming back into our time machine and just traveling there with us. We really appreciate your listenership. So you can find us on queerosphere.net if you'd like to just see our content. You can find us on social media, usually at Queerosphere or Descent to the Queerosphere, depending on the app. And then inquiries, Queerosphere. I'm going to repeat that. And you can find our email, inquiriesqueerosphere@gmail.com, for any discussion points or any raving reviews. Also, we'd love to hear from you. So send us an email if you'd want. So we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks for listening.
Hello. Goodbye.